And I'm going to share my desktop and show you guys our lesson. So today we are going to talk about homework. And so every lesson, we've been going through the entire lesson in these webinars. Every lesson has 8 parts. So the first part is the theme picture. The second part is vocabulary and grammar. The third part is conversation. Fourth, we have pronunciation, where we focus on sounds and syllables. And then part 5 is the Bible story. So in this lesson, we had the story of Noah and the flood. And then then after that, we have activities where students practice the vocabulary and grammar and sounds they've been learning. Part 7 is a song or game. And so last week we talked about the importance of having fun in class using songs and games. And now we are on part 8 of the lesson. So part 8 is homework. And it's really important that your students do the homework outside of class. If they do not do their homework, they will not be prepared for the next lesson. And so you need to really encourage them to do their homework. And if they don't do it, it's best to spend the next class session working on the homework. Because if you skip over the homework, if the students don't do it and you don't cover it in class, they will have a hard time making any progress. So we really want to stress to our students that the homework is important. It takes a long time. It can take an hour or 2 to do the homework. But if they are serious in wanting to learn English, it's essential that they do this homework. So in the A1 beginner lessons, the homework is going to follow this pattern. So the homework number 1 is reading the Bible verses for the next lesson. So we want students to be prepared by reading the Bible lesson in their own language before they read it in class. And you can see we give them the verses to read, and there are hyperlinks here. So they can open up these hyperlinks, and it will take them to this site, which is called live.bible.is. And there they will be able to read the Bible story in their own language. So for example, this one takes us to Mark chapter 8. And you can see right now it's in English, but students can just click here, choose language, and then they will be able to read it in their own language. So we can click here on Portuguese. And then you can see they can watch the video in Portuguese. They can have the audio and text in many different versions in Portuguese, or the text only. So we can go ahead to this one, and you can see then they can read it here in their language. They can also click here to watch the video in their language. So that is part 1 of homework. We really want them to understand the lesson in their heart language. And then part 2 is writing sentences using the vocabulary and grammar they learned in this lesson. So as we explain the homework, we use the same model and repeat that we use in class. So the instructions for number 2 are write 6 instructions your teacher gives in class. And we can model this first one. Please open your book. And then as I explain this homework to the students, I'll give them other examples of things I say in class, like please listen, please sit down, please write. And so this gives them the idea of the kind of sentences you want them to write for this homework. And if you want, you can also illustrate these, like please listen, please repeat. So these are just examples. They don't have to do these exact ones, but this reinforces the vocabulary that they've been listening or that they've been learning, and also, also gives them an opportunity to practice writing it. Okay, so that's homework 1 and 2. 1 is always read the Bible story. 2 is writing some sentences. Homework 3 is just to practice the vocabulary words that they learned. And number 1 is an example, a window, and then windows. So for beginners, for the level A1, they just write the singular with an article and then the plural form for nouns. And for verbs, they write it in the infinitive, like number 12 is to repeat. And then they can write a sentence. We repeat the word. And so as always, the answers are right down here in the teacher's note. So you as a teacher have these answers to make it easy for you to check the homework, which you will be doing. And the students could, if they wanted to, look at these answers, but we encourage them to do it by themselves without just copying the answers out of the lesson. We also encourage the students to watch the YouTube video for the lesson as part of their homework. So in the appendix, the next to last slide of each lesson, we have the link for the videos. And so you can just open up this link and it will take you to the YouTube videos for all of our lessons. And this is a great way for students to practice because they can play the video. Here's the video for lesson 10. They can play the video, they can listen to the sound, they can practice singing the songs, and they can do it over and over again. So that's another great resource we have here. Besides the Bible story videos, we also have the Light of the World videos they can practice. Okay, so that's homework 3, and that's pretty simple. And again, because the homework is the same in each lesson, the students really pick up quickly what is expected of them in these assignments. we also encourage students to have someone that they can practice with at home. So ideally, they would practice with someone who speaks English, but if they don't have anyone who speaks English at home, it's great for them to have somebody in their family or a friend or a neighbor who will practice with them and learn along with them. So it's really great when the students are sharing the Bible stories that they learned with their family. Many times mothers who are learning English will share what they're learning with their children. And in this way, the children are learning along as well. Any questions so far on part 1, 2, or 3 from the homework? And the way that people submit their homework is going to vary. So for some students, they will print out their homework on paper and write on it with a pen. Others will use a notebook and just copy down everything in their notebook. And then they can either take a picture of the homework and text it to you or email it to you, or they can bring the paper into class and you can check it there. I recommend trying to get them to send you their homework before the next class. The reason is it takes some time to correct this homework. And so if you can do it between classes, that will give you an idea of what they're learning, what they haven't learned, giving them feedback so they'll be more prepared before the next class. But you can use whatever method works for you. Some students type their homework in a text message. Some of them write it in a notebook and take a photo of it. Find out what works for you and the technology that you have. Students can even take a screenshot of the YouTube video and then use annotation tools to write on those screenshots. They can go to the Google Drive and download the lessons in PowerPoint or Google Slides if they have that. So it depends on their comfort with technology and the resources that you have. We're working right now on having paper versions of the lessons in a book available on Amazon, so that if students want to order the workbook, they can do that, and then they'll have a paper copy of the book. But right now we just have it available electronically. All right, so.
Elena, I'm sorry, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Kimberly.
What's the best way to provide corrections? Because if you're checking the homework and there's all these different ways they could submit it, and there's a likelihood there could be many errors, but you want to keep them motivated and encouraged. I'm kind of struggling with how do you best provide correction so that they see what they can improve upon, but still, feel as if they're doing the homework well, or that it's good, at least they completed the homework.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. So again, it depends on the technology you have. One of the things I love to do is give feedback in a video format. So I will use a Loom video. That's a free video app, and that allows me to share my screen. So like I'll go over the homework and I will just take a video of myself correcting it and making notes, so I might say, okay, number 1, you did great job here with a window. That's excellent. But on number 2, you forgot to answer that one. So please fill in the blank for number 2, and I can make little annotations in the video, and then save that and send them the video. You can also, write your comments in an email or in a text message. You can mark up the photos that they send you and put green check marks next to the good ones and red X's next to the bad ones. Those are just a few of the ideas. Is that helpful, Kimberly?
Yeah, so then when they come back as a class, would you pick maybe 2 or 3 common mistakes across students?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a class and you notice that a lot of people had trouble with particular things, those are great things to review at the beginning of class before you start the new lesson. And you can just say, I noticed that some of you had trouble, spelling this word or using the article an in front of words that start with vowels. So let's talk about that. Or I noticed many of you forgot to put the letter S at the end of your third person verb. So let's talk about that. And then you can give some examples in the homework of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Now, what I've seen some of our teachers doing, especially teachers who have large classes, is that they will have their co-teacher help them with grading the homework assignments because it is time consuming. So we always recommend that if you are teaching a group, that you team teach, that you have at least one other person teaching with you. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Number one, it's a lot more fun to teach with 2 people. Another reason is that if you are going to be absent, if you're sick or you take a vacation, your class can continue because you have another teacher. And also you are training up another person. So as your ministry expands and grows, you'll have another teacher who can split off and take the classes as they get larger, and they can start training up new teachers as well. So always try to be multiplying yourself. Whenever you do something, have somebody do it with you so they're also learning how to do it. And you can even, depending on your class, sometimes the higher level students in your class can be your assistant, and they can be helping you with some things. And then as they go and progress, they might be able to start teaching lower level classes, again, as your ministry expands. So always be looking to the future. I always try to have like the class that I'm teacher training class that starts today. I've got 5 co-facilitators teaching the class with me. So they're learning how to facilitate, and then they will be able to go off on their own next time we offer it and be the lead teacher on that. But yeah, so it's great to get somebody to help you with the homework. Okay, let's go on to number 4. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, sorry, I was annotating. I have to go back to my mouse. Here we go. So homework number 4 is practicing the sounds. And so in this lesson, we had the ah and or sounds. And so we want students to do 3 things here. They want to mark the sound. So they're going to find all of the ah sounds and circle them. And then they're also going to find all the or sounds and circle them. And then they're going to write and say the sentences. So they can listen to the audio just by clicking this little audio icon here. They can listen to the narrator read the sentences if they're not sure which ones are the ah sound. And we want them to practice writing those, so that helps them with their spelling skills, and also saying it out loud, which will help with their pronunciation. Homework 5 is reviewing the Bible story. And there's different exercises to do this. Sometimes it's fill in the blank, sometimes it's put the sentences in sequence. But they will probably need to go back to the Bible story that they read and fill in the blanks here. And so again, number 1 is done. The people had many sins. So if they are not sure, they can go back to the story, and it says here, he was mad because the people had many sins. And so that's the word they're looking for. For part 6, they're going to choose one verse to memorize. And the memory work is really important. Even your low-level students should be able to do it. It's great because they are practicing pronunciation, they are learning new words, and they are getting scripture embedded in their hearts and minds. So they can choose one of the verses. There's 3 verses to choose from. A, B, or C. They don't have to memorize all 3. They just have to memorize one of them. And these, we do want them to memorize them in English. And we use the easy to read version of the Bible, which has a very simplified vocabulary to make this appropriate for our beginning English learners. Part 7 is grammar review. And so these are words that we've been practicing as we've been learning commands in the grammar section of our lesson. And so they're going to just fill in the blanks with the words provided. Part number 8 is everyday reading. So in this, there's always a little story or document that they need to read and then answer the questions about it. So this one, they're going to read the class rules, and then they're going to answer these very basic questions about the class rules. And they can do that if they have room here. They can write in the space, or they can write it in their notebook. They can, again, write it as a text message or an email message to you. Homework 9 is a writing exercise on the lesson theme. And so here they want you to write 2 instructions for each situation. For example, 2 instructions you might hear in the classroom would be, please open your notebook, or please listen and repeat. On the sports field, it might be, kick the ball over here, please, or make a goal, please. At home, when class begins, when class ends, they're going to try to come up with instructions that people might say in those situations. And then, and when you're grading these for the beginning level, the most important things we want students to be doing as they're writing sentences is starting with a capital letter and ending with a punctuation mark. So you'll always look for that. Did they start with a capital letter? Did they end with the correct punctuation mark? And you don't want to correct every single mistake that they make, especially at the beginning level. Sometimes they write a sentence and every single word is wrong in that sentence, but we can't just mark the whole thing up in red because they get discouraged. So instead, we're gonna find, something good that they did in that sentence. Here, let me write a sample sentence here to show you. So let's say we have a sample sentence of please open this is a typical answer we will get from a beginning student. Please open book. And we might say on that, okay, great job. You put a period at the end of that sentence. So good job remembering the punctuation. And the word open is perfect. But as a teacher, what I might do is circle the letter P and let them know, okay, that needs to be a capital P, a big P at the beginning of the sentence. And I would probably just write the sentence again correctly so that they could see it. So I might write, please open your book, period. And so we praise the approximation that they've made. We praise anything good that they have done in that sentence. And we don't need to elaborate all of their mistakes. There's going to be spelling mistakes because English is hard to spell. But the two things we would probably want to emphasize are capital letters and periods at the end. The spelling will come eventually as they see more examples of it. If you see that they're making a particular spelling mistake all of the time, that might be something you would want to address, but don't. I typically will focus on one type of error at a time. So first, let's get everybody writing with a capital letter at the beginning. Once we've got that down, then we'll work on something else. Does that make sense? Okay. And then finally, our last homework assignment is Now I Can. And we want students to just put a check mark on the things that they can do. And if they cannot do it, we want them to study those things more. So now I can give and follow class instructions. If they can do that, they'll put a check. I can understand, say, read and write the 12 vocabulary words. If they can do that, we'll put a check. I can use please and don't to use instructions. I understand why God created rainbows. So maybe they will leave that one blank. They don't understand why God created rainbows. And if you notice that they did not put a check mark on that one, you can ask them, you could give them the Bible verse citation and ask them to read it in their first language. You could have them go back to the story of Noah and in the lesson and look at the part about rainbows. Maybe they are not sure about that word rainbow, or maybe they don't they can't understand the word created. So you'll point them back where they can find the answers to that. And then at your next class session, you can talk about that a little more and make sure that they do understand. So those are typically the 10 homework assignments we have for every lesson. It always follows the same pattern, and it helps to reinforce everything that the students have been learning during that session. Any other questions you guys might have about homework?